November 2017. That is when I started helping business owners grow their visibility by pitching them to be guests on other people's podcasts. You think a lot has changed since then? You have no idea, my friend, but I am going to spill the beans on the evolution of podcast guesting in today's episode. Let's do this. Hey there, pitches. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Go Pitch Yourself. I am your host, Angie Trueblood, and in this episode, I am giving you an inside peek into what has changed since I started as a freelancer in the podcast pitching space 6 years ago. If you are new here, welcome. I am a podcast guesting and hosting expert and the founder of the Podwize Group, a concierge podcast interview booking agency, which is something else that has changed. It's not just me anymore. If you are an OG listener, hello, my friend. Thank you for sticking with me. I launched the show 2 years after I started pitching, so you have likely heard much of the evolution firsthand, but let's see if I miss anything today. Now, before we dig into this week's topic, it is my favorite time of the episode, our podcast love of the week. This week's podcast love of the week is the Career Sweet Spot podcast by Greenhouse Coaching Company. My local friend, who I met when I worked at a co-working space, Steve Perkins, hosts the show with his business partner, Sunday Marquette. And on this show, they share practical ideas for work, leadership, and life. It's a fun show, story-based, and I love the banter in the beginning between he and Sunday, and I think sometimes his podcast producer is involved in the banter. They invited me on this summer to chat about my non-linear career path, which puts it very mildly. We dug into a lot that I've never actually shared about in my career and business journey, both when I was 16, and we laughed about how in the world my mom felt comfortable letting me have the first job that was my first job, and even now how I've pivoted my business over the last year. It was a really fun interview. Steve is an excellent interviewer, and it definitely gives an inside peek. So go check out that episode. It's episode 191, titled Ted Lasso, Haircuts, and Non-Linear Career Paths, and give the whole show a follow. Okay, friends, so today we are digging into the evolution of podcast guesting. And I thought of this topic a couple of weeks ago as I was kind of laughing to myself about how the work that I do, now we do, on behalf of our clients has shifted so significantly from when I started as a freelancer. So I want to first of all give you kind of a snapshot into what my business looked like and what I was doing for clients when I started solo back in November of 2017. And then I'm going to kind of move it forward and share with you some of the big changes I've seen both in the industry and then how we deliver to clients. My goal with this is that it can really give you some perspective. I think sometimes we're so in the moment of where the business is, the economy is, the industry is, that if we can look back and see how things shift over time, it gives us an ability to almost not predict the future, but to feel more comfortable with the ebbs and flows that come, and maybe learning from some of the past experiences and how we have seen things evolve over time. So I looked back in my emails to try to get a sense of what I was doing for clients back in 2017. Now, fun fact, I was using just my personal Gmail account then. I didn't have a website. I didn't have a domain, none of that. I was able to find a PayPal invoice to one of my first clients for $148.50 for a strategy session and basically an outreach plan development. So I connected with the client, came up with a plan. I don't know if I included the topics in the plan. I'm sure I would have. Or maybe I shared like who they should pitch to. Who knows what I delivered for $148, but I did it. It was an hour session. And then I know I went into every client that I did that for in the beginning would then book me to pitch them. And I think at that point, like I vividly remember having some clients initially that were $297 a month. And then I would go up. Like I remember $497 I was at for a while, and then $697 a month for pitching. So there's definitely been shifts in pricing strategy. So there's that. And in the beginning, I also pitched a lot of different avenues. So I pitched podcasts for clients in the very beginning, but I also saw pitches in my inbox when I was working with Kendra Hennessy, and I pitched her to her local TV station to try to land her a segment on, the morning news. I pitched to Harrow, so help a reporter out. I pitched to try to land, and I did get some for her, I remember, to get features in different publications. And then I also pitched to online publications like blog posts and such. That didn't last long. I mean, I think I did that for like 3 or 4 months. And I was like, I don't like all these other things. I really like podcasts. But in the beginning, it wasn't super clear for me that the impact and the benefit of podcasting over those others. So I needed to get a couple of months under my belt to see like, oh, this podcast thing really has legs and there's real impact for clients. Initially, I sent out 10 pitches a month, and there was definitely no guarantee. It was like, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. And I remember in the beginning, like there have been times that our acceptance rate was close to 40%. So we would get clients booked. Like if I sent out 10 pitches a month, we would typically land 4, which has shifted over time. Also, it took probably years. I never got a response from a host after we pitched that said there's a cost to being on my show. And literally in the last week, I've had 3. So we'll get to this. But over time, I've definitely seen kind of this shift for wanting to charge for podcast interviews. We'll talk about that a little bit. But back then, anyone that said that, I was like, you have lost your ever-loving mind. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard. So that was not really happening. Email growth was incredible. So the impact that our clients would have on growing their email list was significant. They would go on a show, as long as it was a well-listened to show. I remember one time Jennifer Mackey Mary was a client of ours. She's a dear friend and owns Everyday Style. And she went on Kendra's show. And I swear, I think the first day the interview went live, like her email list grew by 200. It was bananas. So you could definitely grow your email list significantly by guesting on a show. Back then, I did not even schedule the interviews. Like I found some of my emails where I landed an interview for Kendra, and I basically like forwarded it to her and was like, woohoo, this one said yes. So go ahead and get this thing scheduled, okay? Which we totally schedule for our clients now. But that made me laugh and I guess I just knew my brain better because that type of detail is very hard for me. So it was probably a really good thing that I was not scheduling at that point. I definitely don't think I was prepping my clients to go on the interviews. I don't think there was enough attention in, the podcast guesting space to really spend time getting to know the host and figuring out exactly how to pull through the interview to maximize impact. And I definitely was not doing that for clients. I don't even think I sent them like an Instagram link so that they could check out who the host was. I mean, I know I sent them the name of the show, but I look at what we do now. We create full-on interview briefs for our clients. We definitely did not do that. I didn't coach them. I think occasionally I would help them make sure. I think we did pretty links. So if they had an offer, if they had an opt-in that they wanted to send listeners to at some point, not in the very beginning, but we would create like a pretty link. They would create it on the back end, but then we would create a URL that would be like / the name of the host. Beyond that, I don't think I coached them much at all on how to optimize their interview. I definitely was not auditing their interviews. And I didn't really help them share their interview. I didn't know always when they went live. We still don't, but Courtney basically scrubs podcast players to find them. If I got any information from the host, I would send it to the client. But the way that I approached business then and the way my clients were totally happy with was this was just a tactic that we were testing out for them. I was the one doing the legwork to land the interviews, and we would just kind of see how it all shook out, right? So as I look back and I think about all of the different facets that I was aware of, and sometimes not even aware of, I don't think I really realized how things impacted the work that we did until they shifted, right? So fast forward to today in 2023, these are some of the biggest shifts that I've seen. So definitely it is a more competitive market. Like the cat is out of the bag. Podcast guesting is a great marketing strategy for getting in front of new audiences. So there's more people doing that. There's also more people doing it very, very poorly, but I digress. So that the market has shifted, more competition. We're definitely seeing more money involved in some of these relationships and interviews. We're seeing more podcasts, right? So back in 2017, there was not nearly as many shows as there are today, which is good and bad, right? So today, there's a lot more variety in the level of engagement that audiences have with shows because they can be more choosy into the shows that they listen to. So sometimes you just don't know if a show is going to pop unless we have prior knowledge of it from a different client. So there's definitely more variety, and you could go on a show and you can see a big boost either in your own downloads if you have a show or your LinkedIn following. And then there's times that you see nothing. And I think a lot of that is because the barrier to entry to start a podcast is so low. It's very approachable. There's a lot more tech tools out there that can help the non-techie podcaster. And so we need to be a bit more discerning with the types of shows that we pitch our clients to, because I don't want them wasting their time. Hey, are you listening to this episode thinking, yeah, Angie, this all sounds great, but I don't have the time to do it myself? Guess what? You don't have to. The Podwize group is here to help. We offer 2 primary services to support our clients in landing and converting podcast interviews. Hop on over to our site, thepodwizegroup.com/services. Check out the ways that we can help you. And if one of them suits your fancy, schedule a time to connect, and we'll talk through whether or not it's a good fit. So the market has shifted for sure. There's also more solutions to match people to podcast hosts, right? There's Podmatch that we had a whole episode with Alex Sanfilipino on. And I stand by what I believe with this, that even though there are matching services, it does not take away that people still need to have a clear strategy in the types of shows they want to guest on that make sense for their business, and the types of topics that they need to talk about in order to attract their ideal clients back to them. So it's a lot of info, but really big shifts in the podcast guesting market. Interesting from a marketing perspective, like where people are sharing their episodes when they share. When we first started, it was really heavy in Facebook. And I remember almost everyone that was a client of mine was sharing their episodes on Facebook. They were interacting with their people on Facebook. Now, we're on LinkedIn. So there was a gradual transition that I saw from Facebook to Instagram, to where then most of our clients, their primary social media channel was on Instagram. And then I would say over the last year, that shift has moved over to LinkedIn. Now, we have shifted who we work with. We work with companies that are more in the B2B space, so it makes sense for them to be active on LinkedIn. But even people that are working in more of a B2C capacity are still engaging with their people on LinkedIn. I think it reflects who we work with, but also the shift for where people are looking to interact in a professional sense. So that's been interesting just as we look, especially for, gauging how big a podcast audience is, both by the reviews, by looking in some of the databases that we subscribe to, but then looking at their social following. I rarely look on Facebook anymore to see if a host has an engaged social following. It's almost always on LinkedIn. Another thing that's changed is the impact that we are seeing from clients guesting on podcasts. So it has been this shift from more of like an immediate gratification of email list growth and more about the long game, which is not something that I'm using to describe that the results are still not incredible. So I feel like sometimes when I tell people that podcast guesting is more of a long game, they're like, oh, yeah. So it's not really going to work, right? We just need to wait it out. No, it really is an impressive way to grow your network, to grow referral partners. Like you and the host should be feeling connected to one another after the interview goes live. It shouldn't just be a one and done event. And getting in front of new people who will likely check you out in their own way, whether that is on LinkedIn, whether that is joining your newsletter, whether it's if you have a podcast, right? They check you out in their own way, and then they can get to know you for a while and then decide whether or not they might want to work with you. But also, there are really quick, direct wins. So a lot of our clients work with clients. So they are typically service providers. And just last week, 2 of our clients shared with us that they had booked their own clients directly from people that had heard them on podcasts, which is like the best thing in the world to us. We love celebrating with our people. So I think the shift in impact is it's not just, an email list growth. We could go on and on about this, which we're not going to, but like it doesn't always equate to more sales. If you don't have all of the pieces in place in your business to actually sell to your list and to sell them something that they are primed and ready for, it doesn't matter if your email list is 5,000 people, right? So I don't necessarily take that as a decrease in impact. It's just a shift in impact. And I am far more comfortable and loving the depth of relationships that I create when I guest on someone else's show and then do my due diligence of following up with them and keeping that relationship going. The actual pitching has definitely shifted. So obviously we do most of our pitching through email, but in the beginning it was really like a bare bones email. And I remember for a couple of years, I really resisted the idea of creating one sheets for clients. Because when I would get pitched, people would just use the one sheet as like a cop out, and they would never create a topic that was super relevant for my show. They would just be like, hey, I think Susie would be a great guest. I'm attaching her one sheet. Let me know what you think. So we never did that up until maybe we did that like 4 or 5 years ago. Now we include the one sheet, an audio snippet, and I've also shifted like how much background we give on the client. Because really, as long as you have a couple of credibility metrics or credibility markers in the pitch that kind of grounds that person as an expert, it's all about the topic. So in the olden days, we used to put a bio in the almost very beginning of the pitch, and it was a fairly lengthy one. And now we give sort of like a 1-sentence qualifier for who the client is, and then we include their full bio at the end. So our actual pitch looks different. We've added in some more formatting options to where it's very readable, very scannable. And we've included links in an area to where if the host is at all intrigued, they have access to any link that they need to kind of vet the guest very quickly, which I think has contributed to us still getting our clients on an excellent number of podcasts. What else has changed? The length of our contract. When I first started, I worked with clients for 3 months, and then they could decide if they wanted to stay on or not, which is hilarious because right now I tell clients basically our first month is all onboarding, and not until the 3rd or 4th month do we actually expect to get a cadence of where we're going to land with how many shows. And then that's where we reevaluate if we need to kind of up the number of pitches that we're sending. But literally, if I had a 3-month contract now, no one would ever renew because they don't see any impact often by 3 months. We have an annual contract now. So we've gone from 3 months to 6 months, and now we're at an annual contract. And I love it because it lets us get to know our clients better. It doesn't make them feel all antsy like in those first few months. If nothing comes through, they know we're figuring it out and are working on their behalf. So that has changed. We also never guaranteed a number of shows. Like I was always kind of like, we're going to pitch 10, we'll see what shakes out. And now we do have to pitch a greater number. We have to send out more pitches than we ever did before to get that 3 to 4 acceptances a month. But I also do guarantee that at the end of that 12 months together, we guarantee 27 interviews. And if that doesn't happen, then we just work to make it happen. So I feel really comfortable with that. I feel like it's a great balance of moving to an annual contract, but also us having skin in the game on behalf of our clients. Obviously, pricing has changed, and this is with everyone. I mean, I feel like podcast guesting was such a new strategy when I first started that freelancers kind of over those first couple of years, a lot of people started pitching and the price points tended to be super low. And I think as more people got into it, they were like, holy hell, this takes a lot of work. This is like a project management nightmare. So our prices have gone up significantly over the years. We actually lowered them a couple of months ago when we went to an annual contract. We had gone up to $1,800 a month, which I just didn't totally feel comfortable with. There's something about that number that I feel like we can do it at 15 and feel really confident in the work that we're doing and in what we're delivering for clients. So we actually landed on $1,500 a month with an annual contract, and we have more deliverables. Remember, like we were not really doing much at all for clients other than booking shows. But what I have noticed over time is that our clients want to engage with businesses who are invested in their work. Like they don't want to just come to us and kind of get 10 interviews handed over to them. So yes, we're doing the interview briefs. We're prepping them for their shows. We're coaching them on their interviews and auditing them. But we have really shifted our deliverables to be not just like a transactional booking agency, but really a marketing partner. We offer once a month networking with all of our clients together to where they can get to know each other and swap their own networks. We do repurpose their content, right? Remember, I was like, I don't even know when their interview goes live. Well, now we have someone who creates social posts for every interview that goes live on behalf of our annual clients. And once every quarter, they get a blog post that has been curated from their interviews. So really trying to help the clients that we have use podcast guesting as a core piece of their content strategy, with us doing a lot of the legwork so that they don't have to. And I think that's been the biggest shift. And part of it, I guess, comes from me kind of owning the value that we provide. Is we're not just a booking agency. We offer our clients a lot more than that, which I love. So I guess the industry has evolved, and after seeing what clients are responding to and asking for and needing, we too have evolved into what we're offering. I would love to hear from you though. What did I miss? Because if you have been guesting this whole time that I have been freelancing and doing this podcast, surely you have seen some changes, my friend. So what have you seen? I would love for you to share it with me in a voice message. Those are my favorite. Over at speakpipe.com/GPY. You can just record a quick message, and then I can share that insight on an upcoming episode because I'm sure I've left out something. So I hope this deep dive has actually made you hopeful. I love the changes that we have seen and experienced, and I think it's contributed to us helping our clients experience podcast guesting as less of a fly by the seat of your pants tactic and more of a long-term intentional marketing strategy. And I really love the idea that myself and my team can kind of go deep with our clients rather than just cranking out pitches and checking off boxes. So I get it though. Some of this may be overwhelming to you, or seeing what the enormity of it might look like could prevent you from dipping that toe in the pitching water. And if that's the case, I would love for you to schedule a time to chat with me. and see how we might be able to support you in at least getting started or having impact if you've tried it before and it's just not worked out for you. You can schedule directly with me, my friend, over at thepodwisegroup.com/services. If you scroll to the bottom, my calendar is there. Click on it and we'll get you straight. We'll figure out if we can work with you. If that's not the best fit, I can recommend other offers, other services. Okay? All right. As always, until next time, be well and be visible. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Go Pitch Yourself. If you found this episode to be helpful, friend, you would be blown away by what we can accomplish together. Here are 2 next best steps. 1, be sure to sign up for our bi-weekly newsletter. That is twice a month, if that term confuses you as much as it does me. Each week that our episodes drop, I send an action-focused email, including an insider tip of the week based on the work that we do behind the scenes in our clients' business. For example, a recent tip of the week included how to estimate how large a podcast audience is. To get access to this exclusive content, pop on over to thepodwisegroup.com/pitches and sign up. As a special thank you, you'll get your first insider tip of the week as access to 6 pitches my team and I have sent that were accepted, including the core components of any great pitch. Number 2, schedule a call with me to figure out which of our services, if any, would be a good fit for you. We have a variety of ways to support you and your team in helping grow your business through podcast guesting, and I am pretty skilled at helping identify pain points and solutions. Hop over to thepodwisegroup.com/services and grab a spot on my calendar at the bottom of the page.